Bangladesh is not a country, it's a survival test, and within it, there are homes no human being should ever have to live in. Today, you're going to see 8 of them. In the beating heart of South Asia, there lies a land woven together by more than 700 rivers. A maze of waterways and emerald green fields stretching as far as the eye can see. A mosaic of vibrant life and culture. Welcome to Bangladesh. But for millions of people, this watery maze isn't a paradise. It's a deadly trap. A daily battle for survival in what's considered the most overcrowded, chaotic, and disaster-prone country on the planet. A place where the word home has been twisted into a waking nightmare. In the next few minutes, you're not going to see paradise beaches or luxury resorts. You're coming with us into Char, the floating slum of Dhaka, where more than 200,000 people live crammed together over a sewage lake, and fire can wipe out everything in minutes. We'll take you to the towering trash mountains of the Machuale landfill, where entire families build shacks on toxic waste and children play with what the rich world has thrown away. You'll come face to face with life just inches from death, in fragile homes built along Dhaka's active train tracks, where each passing train is a quake threatening to destroy it all. And we'll navigate to the Char Islands, the shifting sandbanks that appear and disappear in the rivers, taking with them the homes and hopes of thousands of climate refugees. The first of many on our planet. This video is a punch to the gut, a journey through 8 living spaces that challenge everything we think we know about the word home. Pay close attention. Our journey into the heart of Bangladesh starts now. To understand how a home can become a nightmare, we first need to understand the board on which this game of survival is played. Bangladesh is a nation in South Asia, almost completely wrapped by India, with a small border with Myanmar and a vast coastline along the Bay of Bengal. Its territory covers about 148,000 square kilometers, or roughly 57,000 square miles, about the same size as the state of Illinois. Now imagine cramming half the entire population of the United States, roughly 175 million people, into that one state. The result? Bangladesh. One of the most densely populated countries in the world. A human pressure cooker, where space is the rarest and most expensive luxury. The geography of the country is dominated by the massive Ganges Delta, the largest river delta in the world, formed by the convergence of the Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna rivers. These rivers are the lifeblood of Bangladesh. They fertilize the land, enabling the rich harvests that feed its massive population. But it's a two-faced lifeblood. Every year during monsoon season, those same rivers overflow with apocalyptic fury, submerging up to a third of the country, swallowing villages, crops, and of course, homes. In Bangladesh, the same water that gives you life can, without warning, take everything from you. The history of Bangladesh is also written in water, but even more so in blood. Until 1971, this territory didn't exist as an independent nation. After the partition of British India in 1947, it became East Pakistan, a province separated from its western half, West Pakistan, by more than 1,600 kilometers, about 1,000 miles of Indian territory. One country but 2 worlds, different languages, cultures, and ethnicities. Tensions exploded into the brutal Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971. For 9 blood-soaked months, West Pakistan launched a military operation that became one of the worst genocides of the modern era. Conservative estimates say 300,000 were killed, while Bangladeshi sources say the number could be as high as 3 million. Out of this fire, a new nation was born. Its name, Bangladesh, is a cry of identity. Bangla for the Bengali people and language, and Desh meaning country. Literally, the land of the Bengalis. That history forged a people of almost superhuman resilience, but it also left deep scars on the economy and the country's fragile infrastructure, scars it still struggles with today. And that struggle brings us to a startling contradiction. It's very likely that the clothes you're wearing right now were made in Bangladesh. The country is the second largest garment exporter in the world, a global clothing factory for international brands. This industry is the backbone of its economy, employing millions of people, especially women. But like the rivers, it sets a double-edged sword. The rapid economic growth came at an unbearable human cost. Miserable wages, inhumane working conditions, and tragedies like the Rana Plaza collapse in 2013, which killed over 1,100 workers. It steps in this world of extremes. a physical space that can set hold its people, rivers that give and take life, a history soaked in blood, and an economy that closed the world at the cost of its own citizens. That we still find our 8 homes. Not just houses, but monuments to the daily battle to simply exist in Bangladesh. Our first stop on this journey takes us into the beating and polluted heart of Dhaka, the capital. And there, we find our first home. Welcome to Karail, the largest slum in Bangladesh and one of the most densely populated informal settlements on Earth. Don't sit. Imagine streets. Imagine a maze of bamboo walkways, many of them rotting, suspended over a stagnant black sewage lake. It's on top of this putrid water that more than 200,000 people have built their homes using corrugated metal sheets, plastic tarps, bamboo, and whatever scraps they could find. Here, there sits no sanitation. Trash and human waste go directly into the water beneath your feet. There sits no clean drinking water. And electricity. It's a chaotic web of stolen wires hanging dangerously over the homes. The greatest fear for the residents of Karail isn't set disease or drowning. It sets fire. In a settlement where everything is flammable and the homes are practically glued to one another, a single spark from a gas stove or a faulty wire can unleash an inferno that devours thousands of homes within minutes. A tragedy that repeats itself year after year. Living in Karail means living with the constant knowledge that at any moment, everything you own could turn to ash. If Karail's danger comes from stagnant water and fire, our second home lives under the shadow of moving steel. Along the railroad tracks that cut through Dhaka's urban fabric, thousands of families have built their lives in the narrow, dangerous spaces no one else wanted. The walls of their shacks stand just meters from the tracks. When the trains pass several times a day, the ground shakes violently, the noise is deafening, and clouds of dust and debris invade everything. Children play on the very tracks that, just minutes later, are occupied by 100-ton locomotives. The tracks become their backyard, their mother's kitchen, and the community's gathering place. Over time, residents develop a sixth sense, a human alarm that tells them when to get out of the way. They live in a state of constant alert, where a single moment of distraction can be fatal. For them, the sound of a train isn't just noise. It's the pulse of a constant threat that governs their lives. But there's one place even more unlivable than a sewage lake or train tracks. A place where people live literally on top of what the rest of the world throws away. Our third home is in the Matuail landfill, on the outskirts of Dhaka. Imagine waking up, and instead of seeing the sun on the horizon, you see mountains of garbage stretching as far as the eye can see. The air is heavy, toxic, thick with the stench of rot and methane smoke rising from the ground. This is home to the waste pickers, a community of families who live off the trash. Their homes are built with the very materials they find in the dump. Their economy depends on sifting through society's leftovers in search of plastic, metal, anything they can sell for a few cents. Children don't go to school. They learn from a young age how to identify different types of waste. Skin diseases, infections, and respiratory problems aren't possibilities here, they're guarantees. And much of this trash comes directly from our global consumption. The packaging, electronics, and clothes we throw away come here to die. And these people live and die on our leftovers. Faced with so much misery, it would be easy to believe that the soul of Bangladesh has been crushed. But that would be underestimating the spirit of its people. Because in the same chaotic streets of Dhaka, amidst pollution and poverty, millions of bursts of color and moving art come to life. They are rickshaws, the cycle taxis that are the main form of transportation for millions. And each one is a canvas, a unique work of art. The back of every rickshaw is meticulously hand-painted with vibrant scenes. Tigers, movie stars, dreamy rural landscapes, ornate mosques, psychedelic patterns. It sets a cultural phenomenon known as rickshaw art. For the drivers, it sits a source of pride. For the city, it sets an open-air art gallery. Proof that human creativity, the need for beauty and expression, blooms even in the darkest, most unlikely places. This explosion of color is a necessary breath of air because our journey is far from over. We leave behind Dhaka SIP's urban chaos because our next homes will face an enemy even more relentless than poverty, nature itself. Our fourth home has no fixed address. In fact, it may not even exist tomorrow. Welcome to the Char Islands, sandbanks that form in the middle of Bangladesh's mighty rivers. These aren't set tropical islands. They stir silt deposits, shaped by river currents. They appear, vanish, and shift constantly. They are the most unstable and dangerous lands in the country. Living here means placing a constant bet against nature. The homes are as basic as they come, built from bamboo and tin sheets, designed not to last, but to be torn down quickly when the time comes. A family arrives, builds a home, plants crops, and within a few years, sometimes just months, the monsoon hits harder, the river shifts, and the entire island is eroded away. In a matter of hours, they lose everything. What remains is packed onto a boat, and the family goes searching for a new Char, a newly formed sandbank, to start the cycle all over again. They are river nomads, the first large-scale climate refugees on our planet. They sit through not fleeing bullets or bombs, but a silent, relentless war waged by a changing planet. Their lives are a glimpse into the future that awaits many coastal communities around the world. If in the Chars nature is the thief that steals land, in our next stop, humanity has poisoned its own shores, turning beaches into industrial graveyards. Welcome to Chittagong, the shipbreaking capital of the world. Here, the beaches aren't white sand. They're black sludge, polluted with oil and heavy metals. The skyline is dominated by the skeletons of supertankers and cargo ships, giants of steel used by the world for decades, now sent to die in Bangladesh. The air is thick with the stench of rust, asbestos, and chemicals. Our fifth home belongs to the workers of these shipbreaking yards. They live in overcrowded slums, just meters from this apocalyptic coastline. These are the people who, for just a few dollars a day, dismantle these metal monsters. With no protective gear, often barefoot, they cut through steel with blowtorches, facing constant risk of explosions, collapsing plates, and toxic exposure. Life expectancy here is shockingly low. The work is brutal. But for unskilled men in this region, it's one of the only options. They come from all over the country looking for opportunity, and instead find themselves trapped in a cycle of dangerous labor and unhealthy housing, breathing in the pollution that the global shipping industry prefers not to see. Their home, and the beach in front of it, is the mass grave where the hidden cost of global trade becomes visible and deadly. The brutality of these environments, one shaped by nature's sip's fury, the other by human greed, forces us to ask, is there any hope? Is it possible to build something permanent in a country that is in constant motion? Our next home tries to answer that question, but at a price few would be willing to pay. Bangladesh's answer to the space crisis comes down to one word: verticalization. In Dhaka, massive apartment blocks rise toward the sky, offering what's promised to be a safer, cleaner alternative to the slums. This is our sixth home, the vertical slum. For many families, getting an apartment here feels like a dream come true. But the dream quickly cracks. These buildings are often thrown up with cheap materials and almost no regulation. They become overcrowded concrete islands. Tiny apartments hold entire extended families. Maintenance is practically non-existent. Broken elevators, clogged plumbing, electrical issues, they're part of daily life. The sense of community that once existed in the narrow alleyways of ground-level slums, lost in the dark, anonymous corridors of these high rises. The promise of a better life turns into a new kind of imprisonment, one that comes with a lifetime of debt. It stits the trade-off of mud and tarp for concrete and quiet desperation. But what if you don't even have that choice? Not the vertical slum, not the horizontal one. For over 1 million people in Bangladesh, home isn't a choice. It's just not a dream. It's not even a prison. It's a refuge. Welcome to Chittagong, on the outskirts of Cox's Bazar, the largest refugee camp in the world. Our seventh home is a shelter of bamboo and plastic tarp, identical to hundreds of thousands of others, sprawled across dusty hills as far as the eye can see. Here lives the Rohingya people, fleeing a brutal genocide in Myanmar. They found safety in Bangladesh, but now live in permanent limbo. The population density here defies logic. In some areas, it sits even higher than Dhaka. Danger is constant. The same monsoons that flood the rivers cause landslides that bury dozens of shelters at once. A single fire can sweep through an entire section of the camp in minutes. Life here depends entirely on international humanitarian aid for food, clean water, medical care. And Bangladesh, a nation that already struggles to care for its own people, carries the weight of hosting the largest refugee population on Earth, a tragic layer added to its already complex fight for survival. We leave behind the human drama of Kutup along to arrive at our final home, one that faces the most silent and patient enemy of all. Our eighth home lies in the coastal villages of southern Bangladesh, facing the Bay of Bengal. This land was once among the most fertile in the world. Today, rising sea levels are pushing saltwater inland, mile by mile, year after year. It's a slow, invisible invasion that kills everything in its path. The rice paddies, once lush and green, have become white deserts crusted with salt. Freshwater wells have been contaminated. Homes remain perpetually damp, their mud foundations crumbling. Many are partially underwater during high tides. Farming, the way of life that sustained generations here, is dying. The only alternative, shrimp farming, which not only requires salt water, but further poisons the remaining soil. This slow death of the land has triggered a mass exodus. Young people, with no future in the fields, migrate to the cities, especially Dhaka. They are the human fuel that feeds the growth of the very slums we saw at the beginning of our journey. It steps the cycle of misery closing in on itself. The climate catastrophe on the coast feeds the humanitarian catastrophe in the capital. Korail, the train tracks, the Mantuwale landfill, the vertical slum, the refugee camp, the disappearing islands, the sinking coastline. 8 homes, 8 versions of the same nightmare. Together they form a dark portrait, not just of Bangladesh, but of the forces shaping the 21st century: overpopulation, inequality, global consumption, and the climate crisis. Seeing all of this raises an inevitable question: why would anyone visit a place like this? The answer is simple: Bangladesh isn't set for tourists. It's set for traveler. You don't come here for leisure. You come for understanding. Witnessing these realities isn't set disaster tourism. It sets a first-hand education in human resilience, the real impact of our global choices, and the beauty that insists on blooming in even the harshest places. For those with the courage to go, navigating a country this complex requires preparation. For U.S. citizens and many others, a visa is required, but it can be obtained on arrival at Dhaka International Airport. Still, it's highly recommended to get it in advance from a Bangladeshi embassy or consulate to avoid long lines. There are no direct flights from North America. Most routes connect through major hubs in the Middle East, like Dubai, Doha, or Istanbul, or through Asia, such as Singapore. Your entry point will be the chaotic, fascinating capital, Dhaka. Getting around the country is an adventure in itself. In the cities, the ever-present rickshaws are ideal for short distances. For longer trips, auto rickshaws, known locally as CNGs, are the standard. Apps like Uber and Pathao work in Dhaka and offer a safer, more predictable experience for foreigners. To travel between cities, buses are the cheapest and most common option, but be ready for overcrowding. Trains offer a more scenic and less chaotic experience, as long as you book an air-conditioned seat. For long-distance trips, like Dhaka to the southern coast, domestic flights are surprisingly affordable and save you days of travel. In terms of cost, Bangladesh is one of the cheapest countries in the world to travel. Accommodation ranges from $15 per night for basic guest houses to $50 for mid-range hotels. Food is one of the great rewards. A delicious plate of biryani or a kebab at a local restaurant rarely costs more than $3. Street food, often under $1, but the journey requires caution. Serious crime against foreigners is rare, but pickpocketing can happen in crowded areas. The biggest danger? The traffic. It's chaotic and unpredictable. For health, drink only bottled water and be selective with street food. Talk to a travel doctor about recommended vaccinations before your trip. Traveling through Bangladesh isn't set easy. It requires patience, a strong stomach, and an open mind. That's not a destination for relaxing. It's a place to feel, to learn, and to be transformed. It sits a deep immersion into the human condition, with all its challenges and all its astonishing beauty. We have walked through floating slums, stood on train tracks, breathed the air of landfills, sailed past disappearing islands, and witnessed the slow death of a coast. We have seen how geography, history, and the global economy can combine to create one of the most challenging environments for life on Earth. So, is Bangladesh the worst country in Asia to live in? In terms of infrastructure, pollution, overcrowding, and climate vulnerability, the facts are hard to ignore. The challenges are massive, nearly insurmountable. But the story doesn't end there. Because in each of those 8 homes, in the dirt, the chaos, and the hardship, we found something we didn't expect: smiles, hospitality, generosity from people who have almost nothing, and an unshakable will to live. We saw art exploding from the back of a rickshaw. We saw children playing with contagious joy in nightmare settings. And we saw communities supporting each other with a strength that the developed world may have long forgotten. Bangladesh may not be easy to look at, but it's impossible not to admire the spirit of its people. Here, resilience is instead a buzzword. It stops the baseline condition for survival. So the title of this video tells only half the story. Bangladesh is not a tragedy. It's a masterclass in the human capacity to endure, to adapt, and to find beauty in chaos. It might just be the most painfully human place on Earth. Here on our channel, our mission is to take you where tourism never goes, to show you the world as it really is, no filters. If this video moved you, taught you something, or made you think, the best way to support our work is by leaving a like and a comment. Your engagement tells us that there's an audience for these stories and helps us keep creating content like this every week. Let us know in the comments, which of the 8 homes shocked you the most? Would you have the courage to visit Bangladesh? We love reading your perspectives. And if you're ready for your next journey to one of the most extreme and fascinating corners of the planet, subscribe now so you don't have to miss our next video.